Good morning, everybody. My name is Nicole Carlton. I'm Commissioner for the Division of EMS. Welcome to the 2018 EMS Awards Ceremony. And as you're aware, we culminate EMS Week with an awards ceremony. We've done that for the past several years to acknowledge the division members who have done outstanding deeds throughout the year. Today, I have the privilege to stand in front of you to acknowledge the achievements of the Division of Emergency Medical Service captains, sergeants, EMTs, paramedics, and emergency medical dispatchers. Today we honor those with 25 years of service to the Division of EMS. We have a Meritorious Award, Lifesaver Awards, and Distinguished Service Awards. To those receiving awards today, I would like to say job well done and congratulations. I'd like to introduce Michael McGrath. He's the Director for the Department of Public Safety, as he has always been a strong advocate for the hardworking men of the Division of EMS, and I'm sure he'll probably tell a story before we started how things kind of used to be done for patients in the city of Cleveland. Director?
Commissioner, thank you. And I'm not going to tell that story. Let me say this, to be able to stand here before you today, stand before you heroes, because the day you put that badge on, you become a hero, is an honor. It is really an honor for me to be here today. We all know that today is National Emergency Medical Service Week, so to have this awards ceremony today is perfect timing, I think. I'd like to begin by recognizing and acknowledging Commissioner Carlton and her staff for coordinating this awards ceremony. Mayor Jackson is unable to attend this morning's award ceremonies, but he wanted me to share with each of you his appreciation for the work that you do. As the mayor would state, not everyone is suited to do this type of work, but those that are have a distinct opportunity to make a difference and provide a tremendous service to the citizens of this community. In extending Mayor Jackson's sincere congratulations and gratitude to those of you receiving awards this morning, we would like to join with your co-workers, your friends, family members, in telling you how proud we are of the service you provide to our community, in good times and especially in these times of challenge. Please know that your work is appreciated and you should be commended for your continued commitment to your chosen profession. That is why it is only fitting this morning that we take the time today to recognize your heroic efforts and say thank you for a job well done. While you share these shining moments and these career milestones this morning with your families, I know that you share similar heartening moments with your brothers and sisters in the emergency medical services every day. I respect the difficult work that you do. I pray for your continued safety, value your dedication and professionalism, and applaud your accomplishments. This morning provides an opportunity to reflect on life's priorities and the difference you make in the lives of each person in this community. On behalf of all the lives for whom you have made a difference, I salute you. So once again, it's an honor, very much so, to be here in your presence today. And I God bless each and every one of you. And please stay safe. Please stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Next, I would like to introduce Councilman Matt Zone. He's the chairman of the Public Safety Committee for City Council. As everybody is aware, Councilman Zone's support of the division goes back to the inception of the Division of EMS, and I'm always appreciative of the Zone family for their perseverance in the origination of the Division of EMS. Councilman?
Thank you, Commissioner. Director McGrath, I'm a storyteller, so I'm going to tell a few stories. To Commissioner Carlton, to the leadership of CARE, to the religious, family and friends, and most of all, our courageous paramedics and EMTs who are receiving awards today, congratulations. This is always one of my favorite ceremonies. As Commissioner Carlton said, for those who don't know the story, when she said, you know, Director McGrath was going to share stories on how people used to be rescued years ago, it was because the police would show up. And then they had to haul patients in a police cruiser and a police wagon. And no disrespect to our brothers and sisters in blue, but it wasn't a very efficient way and a safe way of transporting people. And I often think about the courageous work that all of you do. Police and firemen, it seems like they're always being recognized and glorified, and sometimes in the ranks and files of public safety, it's the paramedics and the EMTs that sometimes don't get to shine in that light. So I'm always thankful when we get to have EMS week and then shine the spotlight in each and every one of you, because you make our community safer. And on June 3rd, 1974, my father had fallen down. He had a massive heart attack, hit his head. The police showed up, but they couldn't transport him. It took 50 minutes to get a private ambulance there to shuttle him just 10 blocks west to the old St. John's Hospital. My father ended up passing. And so my mom, when she was actually appointed to my father's council seat, my father was a councilman for the city of Cleveland, she was determined to establish EMS service in the city of Cleveland, and she researched it, and in September of 1975, she introduced the legislation for the creation of this division, and I consider it a high honor to serve as City Council's safety chair, to be a steward over the work that all of you do. And I'm really excited because there are a couple people who are being recognized. Just so you know, I am now Heart Saver CPR AED certified. I went through that training last week. Thank you, EMS. We were able to get 5 council members and 6 people on our staff certified. And I will tell you, there have been times where I've been in a room where somebody has fallen down, and I was not that guy to go and rush and jump in because I was scared. And I was scared because I didn't know what to do. Others came there, but now that I know what to do, you know, I will jump in. And I know that each and every one of you don't even think twice. You just jump into it, and it's built into your muscle memory, and you're lifesavers, each and every one of you. I do want to share one other great story. You know, it warms my heart how each and every one of you makes our community and our city better. But there is one of your colleagues, a paramedic, who is now doing this type of training in our neighborhood, and he's getting businesses certified. We're putting AEDs up. He's doing training on his own time, sometimes on his own dollar to do it. And I just want to give a special shout out to super paramedic Timothy Sommerfeld, who all of you know, a guy. Where's his cape? Where's he at? Tim, you hiding on me? Where are you at? Oh, he's over there. Don't let that slight demeanor fool you for a minute. He's tenacious. But I really want to congratulate and salute each and every one of you for what you do for making Cleveland safer and better. And thank you all, and Godspeed to each and every one of you.
Thank you, Councilman. Public Safety Medical Director Thomas Collins cannot be here today. He has several children graduating from either high school or college. But as Dr. Collins would always say, that there is no greater opportunity or privilege than to care for the lives of another. So he does send his best wishes and congratulations to those who are receiving awards today. And I'm not going to, talk too much more, because obviously the presentations is why we're here. And for those recipients, as you are called, if you can please stand and then come forward to receive your award, and a photo will be taken by the city's photo team. I would like to introduce Jim McIntyre, who has been a part of Cleveland's radio personality for I won't say how many years. And we are appreciative of his presence today, and it's an honor to have him here to read the narratives of those who are receiving rewards.
Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. As a current employee of the American Red Cross, I'm especially appreciative of the work all of you do. The first awards are being presented to those employees with 25 years of service to the City of Cleveland. The first award goes to Captain Reginald Anderson. Captain Carol Cavan. Paramedic Herbert Devalier. Paramedic Michael Eddy. Captain Margarita Noland Moore. Paramedic Tony Newborn. And finally, Captain Michael Threat. Sorry, Captain Threat. It won't be the first name I'm going to butcher today, believe me. We continue now with the Meritorious Service Award, given to employees who perform an act in an exemplary and extraordinary manner above the call of duty. On March 20th, a pregnant 23-year-old was in labor and being driven to the hospital by her boyfriend. The baby wouldn't wait. The boyfriend called 911 while driving to the hospital. The call taker assessed the situation and told the boyfriend he needed to pull over. He said, "We're really close to the hospital," and he kept driving, giving the call taker play-by-play of what was going on in the car. The call taker could hear the patient screaming in the background and ordered the boyfriend to pull over now. He complied. She then talked him through the delivery and post-delivery treatment of the baby. She stayed with him on the phone until the ambulance arrived. The baby and mother were transported to the hospital, and both are doing well. For her exemplary actions on the Meritorious Service Award, it's presented to Emergency Medical Dispatcher Janet Valley. We now present the Lifesaver Awards. They are presented to those employees who play an integral role in the resuscitation of a full arrest patient who is discharged from the hospital and continues to be a contributing member of society. Medic 22 received a call for an unconscious man. When they arrived on scene, they found a 67-year-old not breathing and with no pulse. Bystanders had started CPR and applied an AED. They administered one shock. The fire department was currently performing CPR and had also delivered one shock. The cardiac monitor was applied and the patient was in ventricular defibrillation, VFib, and was again defibrillated. CPR was continued, and the patient had a return of spontaneous circulation with a strong blood pressure. The patient was transported and later discharged home. For the life they saved on January 4th, 2017, the Lifesaver Award is presented to paramedic Mark Angel and paramedic Ryan Hocking. Medic 11 responded for a man down. When they arrived, they found an 83-year-old man not breathing and with no pulse. CPR was in progress. The patient had received one defibrillation from the AED at the facility. Medic 11's crew applied the cardiac monitor, which showed asystole, no electric activity. CPR was continued, an advanced airway was placed, intraosseous access was obtained, and cardiac medication was delivered. Upon reassessment, the patient was found to be in ventricular fibrillation. After 2 defibrillations, the patient had a return of vital signs and was attempting to breathe on his own. The patient's vital signs continued to improve during transport. For the life they saved on January 7th, 2017, the Lifesaver Award is presented to paramedic Robert Holmes and paramedic Leroy Norris. A call was received for a female who had fallen. The call taker quickly assessed the patient wasn't breathing and had no pulse. She instructed the family members on scene to perform CPR. When Medic 36 arrived, the crew found a 72-year-old woman on the floor in the bathroom with family members performing CPR. The crew took over resuscitation efforts. The cardiac monitor was applied and showed the patient to be in ventricular fibrillation. The patient was delivered one defibrillation and converted to an organized rhythm with no pulse. CPR was continued, an advanced airway was placed, intraosseous access was obtained, and cardiac medication was delivered. The patient was transported to the hospital where she regained vital signs and was later discharged. For the life they saved on January 25th, 2017, the Lifesaver Award is presented to emergency medical dispatcher Jelena Lockhart, paramedic Andrea Selesky, and paramedic Brandon Seary. While at work, a 50-year-old man experienced a cardiac arrest, a witnessed cardiac arrest. His coworkers quickly administered CPR and applied their AED. They delivered 3 defibrillations prior to the arrival of EMS. Shortly after Medic 41 arrived on the scene, the patient had a return of vital signs with a strong blood pressure. Post-resuscitative treatment was administered and the patient was transported to the hospital and was later discharged. For the life they saved on February 1st, 2017, the Lifesaver Award is presented to paramedic Gurpreet Gruel and paramedic Mark McMahon. A man began having chest pain and called his brother to take him to the hospital. When his brother arrived, the patient collapsed. The brother called 911. When Medic 41 arrived, the patient had no pulse and wasn't breathing. CPR was initiated and the cardiac monitor applied. The patient was in VFib. He was defibrillated and CPR was continued. Advanced life support treatment was administered. Another defibrillation was administered. The patient regained an organized rhythm with a pulse. A 12-lead EKG showed the patient had suffered a myocardial infarction. Post-resuscitation treatment was begun. The patient's blood pressure then began to drop. The crew quickly administered fluid and medication was administered with positive results. The patient was transferred to the hospital and later discharged. The life they saved on March 31st, 2017. The Lifesaver Award is presented to Paramedic Gregory Hyde and Paramedic Matthew Sykes. Medic 4 responded to a call for a full arrest. When they arrived on scene, fire department personnel were there, performing CPR on a 63-year-old woman, and said they had administered one defibrillation with their AED. Medic 4 placed the patient on a cardiac monitor, which showed asystole. CPR was continued, intravenous access was established, and an advanced airway was placed. Upon reevaluation, the patient was now found to have a strong pulse with an organized rhythm. Post-resuscitation treatment was administered and the patient continued to improve during transport and was attempting to breathe on her own. For the life they saved on April 9th, 2017, the Lifesaver Award is presented to Paramedic Timothy Sommerfeld, Paramedic Michael Wager, and Paramedic David Wright. A 76-year-old woman was receiving dialysis treatment when she passed out after her blood pressure dropped. The staff called 911 for the patient. When Medic 10 arrived, they found the patient laying on the floor. The dialysis center staff stated they had performed CPR and had administered one shock with their AED. The patient was not breathing. Medic 10 was unable to place an advanced airway due to the patient's jaw being clinched shut. They inserted a nasal airway and controlled respirations via a bag valve mask. Intraosseous access was obtained and post-resuscitation treatment was administered. The patient maintained vital signs throughout transport. For the life they saved on April 14th, 2017, the Lifesaver Award is presented to Paramedic Anthony Nada and Paramedic Joseph Hollinshead. Medic 11 responded to a call for an unconscious man. When they arrived, they found a 46-year-old with CPR in progress by fire department personnel. They had administered one shock with their AED. CPR was continued. When the patient was reevaluated, he was found to be in VFib, and another shock was delivered. After the shock, the patient appeared to be gasping for air. At this time, he had a pulse, and he was attempting to breathe on his own. An advanced airway was placed, and the patient was transported to the hospital. He was later discharged. For the life they saved on April 17, 2017, the Lifesaver Award is presented to paramedic Robert Holmes and paramedic Spencer Houston. A 67-year-old woman was at a grocery store when she collapsed. A bystander began CPR. First responders from the fire department arrived and continued CPR, administering one shock with their AED. When Medic 41 arrived, they applied the cardiac monitor, which showed the patient to be in VFib. Another defibrillation was administered, and CPR was continued. After 2 minutes of CPR, the patient was reevaluated and found to have a pulse. CPR was stopped and rescue breathing was continued. Post-resuscitation treatment was administered, and the patient maintained a strong pulse during transport. For the life they saved on April 19, 2017, the Lifesaver Award is presented to paramedic Brendan Dunn and paramedic Christopher Fuentes. Medic 4 responded to a call for a patient having a seizure. When they arrived, the patient's friend told them they were watching TV when the patient suddenly began shaking. The patient was lying on the floor, not breathing, no pulse. They immediately began CPR and placed the patient on a cardiac monitor. The patient was in asystole. An advanced airway was placed, intraosseous access obtained, and cardiac medication administered. The patient went into VFib and was defibrillated. Advanced care was continued, and the patient was defibrillated again and again and again. After the 8th defibrillation, the patient regained a pulse. Post-resuscitation treatment was administered, and the patient was transported to the hospital. During transport, the patient was attempting to breathe on his own and was moving his extremities. For the life they saved on April 22, 2017, the Lifesaver Award is presented to paramedic Timothy Sommerfeld and paramedic David Wright. A 52-year-old woman complained of chest pain and passed out. 911 was called and Medic 1 arrived. The patient was not breathing and had no pulse. CPR was initiated and the patient was placed on the cardiac monitor, which was showing VFib. After 2 minutes of CPR, a shock was delivered. CPR resumed. Intraosseous access obtained and an airway was established. The patient remained in VFib. After subsequent defibrillations, the patient developed an organized rhythm and began to move her extremities. But then she'd go back into VFib. The patient received a total of 5 defibrillations. CPR was continued and the patient was transported to the hospital, where they were able to continue the resuscitative efforts and regain a pulse and stabilize the patient. For the life they saved on May 1st, 2017, the Lifesaver Award is presented to paramedic Scott Seda and paramedic Paul Boykevich. A 56-year-old man was walking on the sidewalk when he suddenly collapsed. Bystanders called 911. The call taker was able to quickly ascertain the location and convince the bystanders to approach and assess the patient. When Medic 33 arrived on scene, they found the patient not breathing, no pulse. CPR immediately started. The patient was placed on the cardiac monitor, which showed VFib. The patient was defibrillated and converted into an organized rhythm, but there was no pulse. CPR was continued and intravenous access obtained. Upon reevaluation, the patient was found to have a return of circulation. Post-resuscitation treatment was administered, and during the procedure for inserting an advanced airway, the patient once again lost a pulse. CPR was started, medication administered. The patient then regained his pulse and was transported to the hospital. During transport, a 12-lead EKG was performed and showed the patient was suffering an inferior wall myocardial infarction. How's that? The patient continued to maintain a pulse during transport. So for the life they saved on May 17th, 2017, the Lifesaver Award is presented to paramedic Randy Antonio, paramedic Robert Moyers, and emergency medical dispatcher Nicole Simpson. Imagine coming home after walking the dog to find your spouse unconscious on the floor. That's what the husband of a 72-year-old woman found one day. When Medic 42 arrived, they found the wife wasn't breathing and had no pulse. They placed her on the monitor, which showed the patient to be in asystole, no electrical activity. CPR was begun, an advanced airway placed, and intravenous access obtained. The patient was administered cardiac medication, and CPR was continued. After 15 minutes of treatment, the patient regained a pulse and had an organized rhythm on the monitor. Post-resuscitation treatment was administered, and the patient was transported to the hospital and later discharged. For the life they saved on May 20th, 2017, the Lifesaver Award is presented to Sergeant Kevin Clagg and paramedic David Mordarski. A 56-year-old man was talking with a friend when he suddenly became unresponsive. When Medic 36 arrived, they found the patient to have no pulse, not breathing, CPR in progress by fire department first responders. They had delivered 3 defibrillations with their AED. CPR was continued, an advanced airway was placed, and the cardiac monitor showed the patient was in VFib. He was shocked again and converted to an organized rhythm, but with no pulse. CPR was continued and medication therapy administered. After 2 minutes of CPR, the patient was found to have a pulse and attempting to breathe on his own. Post-resuscitation treatment was administered, and the patient was transported to the hospital. For the life they saved on June 14th, 2017, the Lifesaver Award is presented to paramedic Nathan Brazaitis and paramedic Adam Fetter. When Medic 36 arrived on scene, they found a 63-year-old woman in the backyard of her home with CPR in progress by the first responder from the fire department. They continued CPR and administered defibrillation using the fire department's AED. After the defibrillation, the patient began to have a spontaneous respiration, had a strong pulse with an organized rhythm on the cardiac monitor. Post-resuscitation treatment was administered, and the patient continued to maintain a strong pulse during transport. For the life they saved on July 15, 2017, the Lifesaver Award is presented to paramedic Jacob Hickson and paramedic Lillian Tell. A concert goer turned to his wife during the show and said he didn't feel well, and he passed out. When Medic 23 arrived, they found the 34-year-old man not breathing with no pulse. They immediately began CPR and moved the patient out of the crowd. He was placed on the cardiac monitor and found to be in VFib. The patient was defibrillated and CPR was continued. The patient then regained a pulse and started breathing on his own. Post-resuscitation treatment was administered and the patient was transported. He continued to improve during transport. For the life they saved on September 1st, 2017, the Lifesaver Award is presented to paramedic Alberto Flores and paramedic Anthony Goulan. "911 was called after a 60-year-old man at home with his family passed out. When Medic 11 arrived on scene, they found the patient not breathing, no pulse. The crew began CPR and placed the man on the cardiac monitor, which showed VFib. They quickly defibrillated the patient, continued CPR, placed an advanced airway, and established IV access. They administered cardiac medications, but the patient's VFib persisted. The patient was defibrillated a total of 5 times. After the 5th, spontaneous circulation had returned. Post-resuscitation treatment was administered and the patient maintained a pulse during the transport. For the life they saved on September 16th, 2017, the Lifesaver Award is presented to paramedic Brandon Siri and paramedic Paul Wojtkiewicz. Medic 4 received a call for a man who was walking and fell. When they arrived on scene, they found the 83-year-old not breathing, no pulse, CPR in progress by the fire department first responder, who had delivered 1 shock with the AED. Medic 4 placed the patient on the cardiac monitor, which showed the patient to be in ventricular tachycardia with no pulse. They administered a defibrillation, placed an advanced airway, and obtained intravenous access. Cardiac medication was administered and the patient's pulseless ventricular tachycardia persisted. They administered 2 more defibrillations and rounds of cardiac medications when spontaneous circulation returned. Post-resuscitation treatment was administered and the patient maintained a pulse during transport. For the life they saved on September 19th, 2017, the Lifesaver Award is presented to paramedic Catherine Porter and paramedic Michael Wager. Medic 42 responded to a call for a man having a seizure. When they arrived, they found a man age 50, not breathing, no pulse. CPR was in progress by the fire department first responder. Using the fire department's AED, they administered 2 defibrillations. After the second, the patient began gasping for air. He was placed on the cardiac monitor. An advanced airway was placed and intravenous access was established. The patient had an organized rhythm with a strong pulse. Post-resuscitation treatment administered, and the patient's vital signs remained stable during transport. For the life they saved on November 4th, 2017, the Lifesaver Award is presented to Sergeant Kevin Clagg and paramedic David Mordarski. A 69-year-old man was receiving dialysis treatment when he suddenly went into full arrest. Medic 10 arrived to find the fire department first responder performing CPR. 3 defibrillations had been administered. Medic 10 placed the patient on the monitor, which showed the patient to still be in VFib. They placed an advanced airway, established intravenous access, and administered cardiac medication. They shocked the patient 2 more times before he had a spontaneous return of circulation. Post-resuscitation treatment was administered and the patient maintained vital signs during transport. For the life they saved on November 14th, 2017, the Lifesaver Award is presented to paramedic Catherine Porter and Captain Jonathan Wurstler. Medic 36 was dispatched after a call that a 56-year-old man was complaining of chest pain. The man was standing on the curb waiting and informed the crew he'd been having pain for the past 7 hours and that it was getting worse. The crew began advanced life support treatment and administered aspirin and nitro. It didn't work. During transport, the patient began to complain of intensified pain. The monitor changed to ventricular tachycardia. The patient became unconscious and had no pulse. He was defibrillated and CPR was initiated. The patient remained in VTAC and was shocked a second time, after which he developed an organized rhythm, regained a pulse, and regained consciousness. He remained alert and oriented during the remainder of the transport. For the life they saved on November 21st, 2017, the Lifesaver Award is presented to paramedic Andrew Baumgarten and paramedic Nathan Brazaitis. A man goes into a bar. This is no joke. The 58-year-old was sitting at a bar when he appeared to have a seizure and collapsed. A bystander began performing CPR. When Medic 4 arrived, they took over CPR and placed the patient on the cardiac monitor. The patient was in VFib. They defibrillated him and continued CPR, established an airway, and obtained intravenous access. They administered cardiac medication, but the patient remained in VFib. After another shock, the patient changed to VTAC with no pulse. CPR and medication treatment were continued. The patient received one more shock during transport, where he then converted to an organized rhythm with no pulse. CPR was continued until transfer of care to the hospital, where the patient regained a pulse and was later discharged. For the life they saved on November 25th, 2017, the Lifesaver Award is presented to paramedic Michael Land and paramedic Jennifer Wager. Medic 39 responded to the home of a 57-year-old man who was complaining of general weakness. When they arrived, the patient was alert and oriented and told the crew he'd been feeling poorly for several days. Just prior to leaving the home with the patient, he became unconscious. The monitor was showing VTAC and no pulse. CPR was begun and the patient was defibrillated. CPR continued, an advanced airway placed, and intraosseous access was obtained. The patient remained in VTAC with no pulse and received a second defibrillation. After that, the patient confirmed to an organized rhythm and regained a pulse and maintained a pulse until transfer of care to the hospital. For the life they saved on December 11th, 2017, the Lifesaver Award is presented to paramedic Richard Abdallah and paramedic Jason Rapp. Would Mr. Sider please come to the front with us? Mr. Sider? On July 19th, 2017, co-workers came in and found Mr. Sider unresponsive on the floor. They called 911. The call taker was able to quickly determine the location and nature of the call. She assisted the caller on administering CPR. When Medic 43 arrived on scene, they found Mr. Sider was not breathing and had no pulse. CPR was immediately started, the cardiac monitor placed, and showed VFib. The call came from the border of Cleveland and Brooklyn, so Brooklyn Fire was also on scene, and their responders applied their automated CPR device throughout the treatment. The patient, Mr. Sider, received a total of 3 defibrillations while also receiving medication therapy. Upon arrival at the hospital, vital signs had returned and Mr. Sider was breathing on his own. He was immediately taken to the cath lab and is here with us today to present this award. For the life they saved on July 19, 2017, namely Mr. Sider's, the Lifesaver Award is presented to paramedic Anthony Nada, emergency medical dispatcher Patricia Sifford, and paramedic Joseph Spurlock. Awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Would Mr. Williams please join us? Mr. Williams? On the evening of February 13th, Mr. Williams was preparing dinner when he began having pain in his back and chest. The pain was consistent and increasing in intensity. His wife called 911. Medic 6 arrived and assessed Mr. Williams and placed him on the cardiac monitor. While they were there, attempting to perform a 12-lead EKG, Mr. Williams developed ventricular tachycardia and then went into ventricular fibrillation. CPR was started, and he was defibrillated one time. Mr. Williams then went into an organized rhythm and regained a pulse. He then regained consciousness and continued to complain of chest pain. Post-resuscitative treatment was administered, and Mr. Williams remained stable throughout transport to the hospital. And thankfully, he's here with us today to help present this award. For the life they saved on February 13th, 2017, the Lifesaver Award is presented to paramedic Sergio Fletcher and paramedic Shannon McWilliams. The final award to be presented today is the Distinguished Service Award. Sergeant Gwendolyn McHugh began her career with the Division of EMS in May of 2003. In December 2007, she was appointed to the sergeant position, and in November 2008, became the lead sergeant for recruitment and training. She has assisted with 13 training academies, providing direct oversight as the lead instructor for 11 of those academies. Since her appointment as the lead instructor, the successful completion rate of the EMT Cadet Academy is over 90%. Sergeant McHugh shows tremendous dedication to her duties, many times working well beyond a normal work week to accomplish the tasks before her. Sergeant McHugh was instrumental in 2012 when the division hired 50 EMT paramedics to increase the number of ambulances to 18. And again in 2017 when the division hired over 60 EMT paramedics to increase the number of ambulances to 25 on day shift and 21 on night shift. The Division of EMS currently has 314 employees. More than 190 of them received their initial training under Sergeant McHugh. For demonstrating a high degree of personal initiative, performing substantially beyond normal requirements, and consistently performing at the highest levels of excellence with a special faithfulness to duty, the Distinguished Service Award is presented to Sergeant Gwendolyn McHugh.
Oh, what a morning. I'm sure everybody's got some tears coming of those two stories, and I thank the survivors, the patients that we took care of for coming today. It really makes a difference for the paramedics to actually meet you in person after they've resuscitated you. Thank you. I'd like to thank everybody for coming to the ceremony today. I'd like to thank Sergeant Letha Harris, who was very instrumental during EMS week of organizing our activities. Letha, do you want to? There you go. Instrumental during EMS week as well as the ceremony today. And I would like to thank our hospital partners. As everybody's aware, they support us in our mission with delivery of pre-hospital care. We had the Cleveland Clinic, Metro Health, St. Vincent Charity, and University Hospital show their appreciation to everybody during this week. And finally, thanks to University Hospitals, we have light refreshments out, I believe, in the hallway there for everybody. Thank you for coming and enjoy this wonderful weekend. Thank you.